Yokoso, my manga society. So we're back with another 2 volumes, this time one we've already talked about, and then one new one. So we'll first talk about Tokyo These Days. This is the last volume of the series. It's 3 and done. And yeah, I feel like a lot does happen, so let's just get into it. At the very start, we go into a new character. So Shiozawa drives out to Kaeru to see if he wants to draw a manga for his magazine. And we learn that Kaeru actually went through some hardships with his previous manga partner, and so he quit. And it just kind of goes through that, the hardships that he's gone through and then what he's doing now. He actually does draw a little bit, but I don't think he goes into the magazine. So it was just like a nice little, well, it wasn't nice, but it was a little story on another character that Shiozawa was trying to recruit.
It was nice because he's finding his inspiration again, even if he doesn't want to do it for work, maybe.
No, that's true. That's totally valid.
And I like how, because even in volume 2, there was that mangaka who, she had a huge hit manga, but she felt like she didn't have the time to be in Shiozawa's magazine. So it's not like every person he goes to agrees to be in the magazine.
Right, but it's nice to see how many connections he has.
Mm-hmm.
It really shows his love for manga and how many friendships he's made through, editing manga. So
yeah,
it's
that's
nice.
Interesting because editing can sometimes be a contentious job.
Yeah, for sure. But everyone loves Shiozawa. I feel like he's one of the more laid back, and I don't think that really gets in the way of his editing though, because everyone can tell how much he's into his job, how much he loves manga. And I feel like a lot of editors are very, very strict, but he seems laid back, but also helps them in the right direction at the same time.
He seems like he understands the vision that each mangaka has, and likes different types of manga on their own merit instead of just thinking about what will commercially sell well.
Right, which is what a lot of editors kind of try to go for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see someone more, what's the word? Supportive of their mangakas.
Yeah. Can we go back a little bit? Because I just want to mention that, so in volume 1, we find out that Shiozawa suddenly quit his career and then is pursuing this new manga magazine. But in this final volume is when we finally learn why he quit. So it was backstory, but it was interesting because it's at the very last volume when we find out.
Yeah. And I was always wondering, and I'm glad they actually did go over that story.
Mm-hmm. So it was essentially because he was trying to do the same thing when he was still working as an editor. He was creating this manga magazine that had all these different creators on it, but it didn't sell well, so it got axed. He was kind of upset about that.
Yeah, for sure. And the guy that axed him kind of seemed jealous in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Which was interesting to see as well.
It was just interesting that we finally see that, because I was wondering this whole time, why, if he loves manga so much, why did he quit?
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next person that he visits is someone, actually, I think this is a retirement home. And he draws manga for basically the entire retirement home. He used to be a pretty popular mangaka, it sounds like, because his other ones still sell in bookstores, but now he just kind of does stuff for the people he's living with. And this was actually your favorite panel.
Yeah, I just really liked what Shiozawa says. So is it okay if I read these 2 panels? It's just like really poignant as a manga reader. Last year, I went into a used bookstore and picked up a copy of Your Life of Ponta. It had been a long time since I read it, but this time it resonated with me in a very new emotional way. There we go. I was reminded that truly great works can evoke completely different responses, depending on the maturity and mental state of its audience. And I just really like that being put into words because we've had conversations about this in the past.
Yeah, we have. I'm just remembering that now that you mention it, but depending on like when you're reading something, you can like interpret it or it can like invoke different like emotions depending on, 1, on your age, 2, on like your emotional state at the time. It's kind of like crazy to think about. And it's not even just manga that does that, but like I feel like just art in general, because manga is basically an art form, but like it's really interesting to think about. Like when you read something when you're younger and then when you read it when you're older, it could be like a completely different experience.
Exactly. And then, right, as you get older, you gain more life experience and maybe you're able to see things from different characters' perspectives that you didn't really understand before, or like you maybe on the second read through or a second watch through of an anime, you catch a theme that you didn't notice before. So it's always like you're discovering like new things, not just in the work itself, but you also like discover things about you and like how you view the world too, especially if like an opinion you had about a work changed over time.
Right, exactly. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we love manga.
Yeah, for sure. Even with just like children's TV shows, you don't even like realize how many like adult jokes they put in those until you watch it when you're older. It's funny.
Right.
So we have more of Chosaku and kind of like a little segment about him and his daughter going to a smaller mangaka's kind of like showcase, I guess. So it was kind of nice to see there. But I think the part that really hit me the most was when on the train back, when his daughter was talking about like that little figure that she had of his manga. That was like so sweet. And like he was like, I can get you another one because that looks a little beat up. But she was like, no, I like this one the most.
This one. From his manga.
From his manga. And so I feel like that also hit me because he's been doubting his own manga. He kind of is feeling down about it. So I feel like that kind of gets him feeling his feelings as well. So that was just like really sweet to me.
It was. And since he's like on crunch time like all the time, he doesn't get a chance to really interact with fans and see how his work has like emotionally affected someone. So it was like you said, it was really sweet to see that his work like resonates with his daughter so much.
Right. And I feel like she's always talking about her mom instead of like him. So I feel like before I got the sense that they weren't that close, but after this, it just kind of like got me thinking other ways. Like she really does look up to him, probably. So
she does.
It was nice.
Yeah.
This next one was a little interesting. With this guy, I don't even know what to say about him.
He's pretty quirky, but it seemed like this whole process of creating manga over the years kind of took a toll on him mentally.
Yeah, because he was known as like a great mangaka, right? But eventually he kind of just like kept talking about how he's gonna create like the best manga ever and stuff like that, but then it just kind of shows him like goofing off a lot or like having like a mental block, like the ultimate manga. He keeps talking about the ultimate manga. But nothing ever like really comes of that. I feel like he just always gets like a mental block and stuff. But does he join the magazine? I don't know. Does it say? Oh, he says, I'm thinking of waiting for Miki Sensei to finish his ultimate manga. So I think he does.
And here's Aoki, he got a haircut.
He got a haircut. He looks really good.
Yeah, he does. And he's a lot more serious now about like wanting to do well, and he wasn't like that before.
Right. I wonder if like they had some sort of talk, or if his travel home was like good for him. Just like thinking about what he actually wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It was probably good for him. But this one guy, I don't know, it doesn't really go into too much detail about him, but I guess he's like quitting manga.
Oh, that was interesting, because he was like, well, he was working as an assistant, but then he had his own manga he was working on the side.
Yeah.
And he decided to quit being an assistant so that he can become a curator, like a museum curator. Yeah, like an
art curator. That was interesting.
I kind of like that too, because if you love manga and art in general, and you've been working in this particular medium of manga for a long time, it doesn't mean you have to stick with that, or that's like the only creative field that you can be in.
Right. No, for sure. You can still have like a love for like art and stuff, and I feel like that just shows through, I guess.
And it's almost like his love of art is actually opening his eyes to experience more moments in real life and like really savor these small moments, like taking a walk at night and like just noticing the sights around him. Yeah,
I feel like you're always like cramped up in your own place when you're always drawing manga. It's like you don't get to experience much else. But I feel like he just wants more experience with other things.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was nice. So now Shiozawa's we kind of saw a peek into what Shiozawa's doing. Like he's just going around to different bookstores, trying to get them to stock up on his new magazine. And everyone's turning him down. No one really wants to sell like a no-name magazine. He has no reputation. Well, he himself has a reputation, but no one's gonna know what this new magazine is, so it's kind of hard to sell something new. So everyone's turning him down. But then he stumbles across like this old man's bookstore, and I think he recognizes his name, which is one of the reasons he actually decides to take on the new magazine. And then he actually calls his son's bookstore, which Shiozawa had just gotten not necessarily turned down by, but they kind of like said, we're not sure, the boss is out right now, we'll get back to you later. It kind of seemed like it was gonna be a no. But then this owner decides to take his books and then also call his son to like explain that there's this new great magazine to stock up on. And this was actually one of my favorite panels and just excerpts out of this volume, because I feel like Shiozawa is like so passionate about this, and he doesn't necessarily, I feel like you don't see him getting discouraged by going to these bookstores, but he's always just kind of like, he pushes forward anyways, and then eventually he just comes across someone that realizes his passion and like his name, and so I feel like his efforts have really like paid off. He just like did not give up. He's been working like really hard for this, so that's why it was like one of my favorites.
So the last section of the book mainly has to do with Chosaku. So this whole time he's kind of been waffling about whether he wants to actually be in the magazine, because he was working on this hit series which was taking up a lot of time, but then all of a sudden, right, he kind of decides to like conclude the series.
Yeah.
And he's in a slump for a while because he does want to be part of the magazine, but he's really struggling to create something. I think he sends a storyboard and they have a really interesting conversation where Shiozawa is basically saying like, your manga seems like it's kind of curated to sell, and it's not necessarily like, where's the nuance, where's the subtlety of your creative vision, you know, like this isn't just a product that we're making. So that was like a really interesting conversation.
That was.
Yeah. Because Shiozawa was like, I think your readers expect more subtlety from you. And he's like, you can't make a living drawing for readers who get subtlety.
Damn.
So that was like interesting, because that's what the whole series is kind of about. Like, do you stick with your creative vision? Do you try to create an original piece of work?
And that's what this new magazine is about. Like, I feel like the whole industry has gotten to Chosaku. I feel like that's where this is coming from. That's kind of like learned behavior from just being in the manga industry.
Right. Because you can't just draw, like if you're working for a big publisher, you can't draw willy-nilly.
No, you
I
can't.
mean, if you have made a name for yourself, then you have a lot of creative freedom, but you do have to think like, okay, is this gonna sell if I decide to go in this direction?
Right.
I'm sure there is a lot of stuff that mangakas write that's not necessarily their first choice and how they want the story to go, but it's like a decision that they came to with their editor.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, so he's in this slump. I just really love how this is depicted. He kind of like holes up in this coffee shop. Love this panel. He's stuck. He's been doing this for days. He can't come up with anything that he likes. He takes a little walk and it's raining really hard. And he drops his umbrella and he goes running after it. But I think like when he dropped the umbrella and like he felt the rain on his face, it kind of snapped him back into reality.
Yeah.
And he had this moment, this epiphany on what he wanted to write. It was just a really cool way of depicting that.
It's really cool.
So then he rushes back and is able to finish his storyboards that he turns in. This conversation so this is a mangaka that we learned that she passed away in volume 1, and so they go to her funeral. But it was nice that it circled back to her.
Yeah, and I feel like this is such a cliche like saying, and everyone says it, but it's so true. It's like, it's really the journey that's brought me joy. Like, I feel like when you're creating stuff or you have a goal in mind that you're really trying to get to, I feel like it's always after the fact that you realize that it really was the journey that was like the best and the most fun, and that's kind of like what brought you the most joy rather than the end goal.
Right.
But yeah, no, I liked that they actually talked about that. I know a lot of people talk about it, but I don't know.
No, I like that a lot too.
Yeah, I almost chose that as my favorite.
These beautiful color pages, yeah, I almost chose this too.
Yeah.
So then this is just kind of like an epilogue. We learned that he did end up publishing the manga, and it's actually selling really well.
Really well,
It's
yeah.
on like back order at the stores. Aoki feels inspired.
He's doing really well.
Yeah, he's continuing to work on his manga. It seems like Chosaku maybe moved out of the city into the suburbs is kind of
seems
what
like it.
I was assuming from this.
It seems like he's gotten
landscape.
his like inspiration back after working with Shiozawa.
Yeah, it does. His eyes seem a lot clearer.
Yeah,
now.
he's like less red in the face.
He looks way more peaceful.
He does.
And before, like, his room was a mess too.
Right.
Like, all he could really focus on was the manga.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. That was Tokyo These Days. I guess there's a couple other things I wanted to say about it. So one thing I wanted to mention is after every chapter or big scene, they always zoom out
I
to
noticed
these
that too.
landscape shots. And I really like that because it kind of hits home that these characters, they're not just in their little bubble. They're all kind of intertwined in each other's lives.
Yeah.
And they're all part of this, like, microcosm of people.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
liked
like
those
that.
panels a lot too.
You like those?
Yeah.
And then kind of going along with that, I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a lot of like background sounds
Yeah.
that the author chooses to put in. And I like that too, because with all these places that they're having conversations, you're always reminded that there's still like people living their lives around them.
Right.
And it feels like the world feels really lived in and realistic. Like you hear
It's
all
nice.
these sounds. Yeah. When
It really
they're-
is like Tokyo these days.
No, it is. It is. All these sounds, yeah. When they're having like a meal at restaurants, you hear the customers
Yeah.
around them. Really cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, one last thing I wanted to say about this. I mean, I kind of talked about this in the last video where we were discussing volume 2. So this was definitely like a different type of read for me because I'm not used to a story that's kind of like, I don't want to say like meandering like in a bad way, but it's not like a story that goes straight from A to B. And so for me, it was hard to get into in the beginning just because I just wasn't used to that style of storytelling in manga form.
Yeah.
But once I did actually understand like, oh, okay, this is what the story is gonna be. Like Shiozawa's gonna go to all these different people and we kind of get an insight into like their creative process and their life basically.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, now I'm hooked because at that point, then I can like stop focusing on like, when are we gonna find out more about this magazine? Because it's not really like, even at the end, you don't really see like what's in the magazine or
No, you
anything because it's not, like we said, it was about the journey and like about everyone's lives. It's not really about what they made in the end.
No, not really.
So then once I understood that, it was like I was sucked in.
No, I thought this was really good.
Really good. And brings up interesting questions that I'm gonna be pondering for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Tokyo These Days.
If you're interested, but you're not sure about it, just read the first volume and see if you like that. If you like it, then you'll probably like the rest of it. If not, then maybe, I don't know. It's probably not for you, but
Right.
yeah, no, it was a really good read. Honestly, I'll probably collect it at some point.
Nice. All right. Next we have a new
New
series.
Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You.
Story and art by Jin Ushi.
So this is about a middle-aged man who goes to a supermarket to see a cashier who brightens up his day with her smile. And then he meets up with another girl behind the supermarket who's just casually smoking. So he's kind of looking for a spot to smoke, and she invites him.
And then you find out
that this person is no, it's the same person, but she's like messing with him.
Yeah, this person is this person.
No, yeah, she's like pretending to be two different people. So she like messes with him. She tells him they're like really good friends. So it's basically just a bunch of shenanigans. I don't know if there's too many scenes I really want to like talk about. It's all just like teasing and stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, it's like little moments.
Yeah, we do get some backstory later, but...
Right. So I guess, right from the jump, I mean, maybe like I don't have too big of an imagination, but this premise of like he somehow cannot tell the difference between between the cashier version and then I guess this is like who she is in her day-to-day life. I don't know, like
you would definitely be able to tell. I think it's just so dense.
I don't know if I like this idea of like you have your one side out, especially because we've both worked retail, so it's like you do have to hide, right? And if you're someone who's like more not as cheerful, like in their day-to-day life, then you do have this different side to you when you're working customer service. So I do like that point that the series is trying to make. But I don't know how far you can take this premise, like when is he gonna find out?
Where is this going? And you can tell like it's like there is the beginning of like romance, which I think is a little weird just because the age gap is like 20 years. He's like 45 and she's 24. So it seemed a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the teasing...
I'm not a huge fan of like that dynamic either.
I feel like it could be worse. I feel like in this manga it's a little toned back, but yeah, still, it's... Yeah, I don't know.
So the author has like a little afterword at the end where they talk about the serialization of this book, and then they were saying that this was a comic that was first posted on Twitter, and a lot of these early scenes I think are pulled together from what they were like originally posting on Twitter before this became serialized. So I could see, especially because they do decide to focus, like in these last 15 or so pages, they do focus on Yamada's backstory and how she got started at the supermarket. So if this series like continues on, I'm hoping that we get to find out a little bit more about each of the characters, because right now it does feel a little bit disjointed, but that's just because of how it was being published.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we do get some backstory. I guess we learned that Saki, I guess he had like, I'm assuming this is him, but he had like defended her earlier, so I'm assuming that has something to do with her probably like looking up to him in some way. And I guess this was both of our favorite panels. Just them talking about like keep doing something because you like it and everything else will follow. So I like that just because I feel like just in general it's a pretty good quote. I feel like as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, everything else will come naturally.
Yeah, I like that it gave her encouragement
Yeah.
at her job. And then now we see that she's a really good
cashier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say overall, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to reading the next volume just because I would be curious how the reveal happens and how, I guess, their relationship progresses. I would hope that it delves a little bit deeper.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, I don't know if this is one of those cases, like with A Man and His Cat, where those were also just like short comics posted online, but then it actually did get a publication, which led to an actual story. I'm assuming this is probably going that same direction.
Yeah, hopefully, because
So-
this is the only one at the library right now, but I know at bookstores I've seen volumes 2 and 3. So
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was, like, I'm not super invested in the relationship, but I do like, it's like an interesting setting for a romance. I like,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I like that it's kind of like these two people are really busy with their jobs, so I'm sure it's hard for them to go out and find time for them to actually like date people.
Yeah.
So then it's like nice that they have these little moments with each other with their smoke breaks that
Yeah.
they can start building these like nice little moments together. So it's an interesting setting for
It is.
sure.
I agree.
Would
Yeah.
you
I'd be willing
want-
to try another
maybe like
volume.
one more volume
See how
if
it
they get
goes.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was a fine read. Yeah, I think that's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. If there are any other mangas you'd want us to like start, let us know if any like recommendations. We'll see if they have them at the library.
Because we finished this, we're almost done with Skip and Loafer and Alice in Borderland, so we'll need a couple.
We'll be starting some new series, yeah. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thank you.